Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Neil Jenman, who's written, in fact, he sent me a couple of his newest books. One, which is the updated version. It's a book which is called Success Takes Character, and I tell you what, Neil Jenman?
Yes.
I love the cover of that book, by the way.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. That's my wife did that for me 25 years.
I've got Professor Ian Plimer with me and Les Ellicus at the table. Look at that, Professor. Isn't that the most beautiful library?
It is.
It is. I love it.
Yes.
Just fantastic. Is that in your house, Neil?
Yes, it is. That's in my home, yes.
Where is your home? Where did you end up picking as a spot to live?
Oh, well, that's in our house in Sydney, but we live now out in the bush on a farm. But I've got a library at the farm as well.
Yeah, well, you obviously are a great reader.
You know, the most common question I get when people see the library is they say to me, "Have you read all these books?" And I answer, and then I say, "I've read some of them twice," which is not answering the question, of course.
Because there's some you haven't read.
How did you get involved in real estate in the beginning, I mean?
Oh, well, I think the reason most people got involved in real estate, I wasn't qualified for anything else. You know, there's nothing else I can do. I mean, nobody. You never hear of anybody being rejected to get a real estate license or for going into real estate. And I wasn't suited for physical work in the bush. And I was in a little town called Yeppoon one time, and it was in the early 70s. And this fellow said to me, you know, when you've got long hair and scruffy and the bell-bottom trousers we had in those days, he said, you know, if they can make penicillin out of mouldy bread, he said, I'll make something out of you if you get a haircut.
What was wrong with the hair? Was it long?
Oh, of course it was. You know, yeah, you know how it was in those days of all the rock bands and everything like that. So, yes, I did. But, you know, from the moment I got into it, I really did love it. I really did. I loved the freedom of it. I loved meeting the different people. I loved sitting with them and the friendships you'd make. And I think that's why I became, the more I got into it, the more loyal and dedicated I became to looking after these people, because they're really...
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Good people. And now I've been 52 years I've been in the real estate industry, and I've never had a complaint from an honest consumer. The only people that complain about me are the other agents, because I write about what they do. And, you know, the incredible thing is, Jeremy and Ian, is that agents are always looking for houses for sale. That's the number one thing they want. And they could find many more houses for sale if they just treated the customers better. Yes. It would be wonderful. I mean, we are the only country, New Zealand are copying a little bit, we're the only nation in the world, there's 195 nations in the world, countries in the world, and we're the only ones that ask home sellers to pay up front for advertising money, and they get charged if they don't sell their houses. It's appalling.
It's a kind of a foolproof thing, because you've got to pay for the marketing.
Yes.
And the real estate agent is the one who makes the commission and takes the benefit that comes from the marketing.
Oh, of course, you know, I mean, but it makes no sense when you think about it. Imagine if you're having a barbecue on the weekend and you've got 100 people coming over and you go into the butcher shop and say, I want to order, 150 T-bone steaks and 50 rump steaks. Yeah. Would he say to you, give me some money so I can advertise to find some cows? And it's the same thing. And you should say to an agent, what do you want advertising money for? Did you just open, did you, mate? Because many times they've already got the buyers for the properties. You know, in every area there's not more than, say, 10 buyers. It depends how big the area is, but there might be 5 or 10 buyers buying a house every week. Well, each agent in the area has got access to those buyers, and they know often, and they'll tell you this if you grill them on it, how many times do you advertise a house and the buyer that comes in for the advertisement is one that was already known to you, which proves the adage that advertising in sales, they say advertising is what you do when you're too lazy to go and talk to people.
Yeah. What do the other real estate agents think of your books, which are largely exposés of their industry? I'm sure they don't want you talking about stuff like this.
Well, no, Jeremy, in fairness, some of them do. There's an agent in Melbourne who, his name is Sam Panisi. He just got an Order Australia medal, and he was a big-time auctioneer. And when he read what I'd written and the exposés I did, he said, well, this is a much more ethical way to do it. This is the way I'm going to do it from now on, because at auction, you're quite right, Neil, the best that can happen to somebody selling at auction is that they get they get the second best price, just a little bit above the second best price. You know, they might be happy, but if they knew what was actually going on behind the scenes, they wouldn't be happy. So I get people. One of the things is that the people who support me, I suppose, are generally the ones who have read what I've written. And if you read what I've written, I mean, in that, I think I sent you the auction book, didn't I? The 88 Reasons?
Yes, 88 Reasons Why You Must Never Sell Your Home at Auction.
Yes, and what I did in there, at the end of the book, I said I challenge any high-profile, chest-thumping, agent to debate me on the issue. $100,000 can go to the charity of the winner's choice. And nobody's come forward. That book's been out for over a year now, and nobody's come forward to debate me on it, because they all know, Jeremy, that even if the property, the owner's expecting 1.5 million, it goes to auction and sells for 1.6 million. And they say, aren't we heroes? We'll get you another 100,000. The buyer whispers to his wife, gee, we were prepared to pay 2 million. We just paid 400,000, saved 400,000.
All right. So, when I think auction seems to be the most popular way, either people want to put their property to auction or they are talked into it by the agent. I don't know.
That's the point. They're talked into it. It's popular with the agents. Now, you must remember, too, that I've done what most homeowners and consumers haven't done, is I've done the real estate courses and I've been subjected to the auction training. And I'll never forget, in the 80s when I did the auction training, I'm sitting in the front row and the teacher says, what's the matter with you, Jenman? I said, no. He said, well, you got some problems with what I'm saying? He said, come on, speak it all out. I said, well, he said, come on. I said, well, look, I thought I'd come here to learn about auctions and selling. I didn't realize I'd come here to learn fraud.
What did he say?
He said, I take great offense to that. And I said, well, I take great offense to being taught fraud. And he said, Give me one example. I said, well, I've got 14 here, if you like. And I started to rattle them off. And, of course, he stopped me then. But the definition of fraud is to obtain a financial advantage by deception. And if any real estate agent says to any home seller that auction is the best way to get the best price, then I'm sorry to say this, but that agent is either incompetent, and lots of nice people are incompetent. I've been incompetent many times in my life. I probably still am, if you ask my wife. Either incompetent
all right.
or dishonest.
Okay, so don't sell through auction. What is the best way, then, to sell?
In a nutshell, the best way to sell is private negotiation, whereby when you've got more than one buyer, each buyer can't see what the other buyer is offering. Now, in South Australia, by the way, the South Australian government has enacted legislation which actually works very much against the sellers. In South Australia, the sellers have to tell the agent the lowest they're prepared to accept. And it goes on, those get written on the document, on the listing agreement they sign. But that information shouldn't be shared with the buyers, because they talk about, say, you'll hear that said auctions are transparent. You've heard that.
Yeah.
No, they're not, because the greatest thing you need with two parties, the seller has to reveal their lowest price, which is the reserve price, okay?
Right.
But what do they do? So they call the seller's lowest price the reserve price. What do they call the buyer's highest price? They don't even they haven't got a name for it. So they don't know what the buyer's highest price is many times. And if the sellers have to reveal their lowest price, shouldn't it be fair that the buyer should reveal their highest price, and we can sit down and play this amicably?
How do you get that highest price figure? How do you do that?
My wife is of Scottish descent, and the Scots are very good with their money. And what we should be doing is selling real estate the way we sell it, it gets sold in Scotland, which is, if you like, it's a sealed envelope and expressions of interest. I had a very good friend of mine in South Australia. He's in the Barossa Valley. He's got wineries. He said to me about a year or so ago, he said, Neil, I hate the expressions of interest. I said, well, Michael, why would you hate expressions of interest? He said, because I'm forced to pay my best price. He says at
Yeah.
auctions you can buy for, I've got instances where people buy houses at auctions for millions of dollars less than they were prepared to pay, and then they flip them. If you know what that means in real estate, they flip them again fairly quickly. And you could just go onto CoreLogic and look through all their, just go on a bit of internet and look through all the statistics for real estate, and you'll come across houses that have been bought for $1.5 million, then resold for $2.2 million, and so on.
Yeah.
The thing is, it always catches. Do you know what, Jeremy? It always catches, generally speaking, the naive, and often they're the elderly, the sick, and the poor. Many people, when they're selling a house, it's one of the most emotional things that they will ever do in their lives, and then to be under that sort of pressure, it's just not right. They need to. Look, I've never said this on the radio before. I don't know how many listeners you've got, but I get so worked up about this, and that I would. Any of your listeners, I'd give them a copy of my book for nothing. There you go. Right,
because you in fact, I've heard your ad where you say, I'm so sincere about what I'm trying to tell you that, I want you to have the information. I will send you a copy of my book for free.
That's right.
That's why I rang you up. I thought that was a fantastic thing to do.
And I can assure, and what happens, the agents get confounded. They can't figure out why I'm doing this. They can't figure out how I make money. Because,
what's in it for you? Yes.
Well, I'll tell you what's in it for me. I've got a cranky wife because we've lost $60,000 in the last 3 months. Yes.
Oh.
but the thing is, Ian, the thing is, Jeremy, because I'm not in there with you. The thing is, everything in life is not just all about money, but what I want people to do, though, is have the choice. If they want to sell their house for lower than the best price they could have got, that should be their decision. But don't tell them that auction is the best way to get the highest price, because it is impossible. It can't happen. Because what happens is each party gets to see what every other person is offering. So instead of each party offering the highest they're prepared to offer, they only offer one increment above the person.
Yeah. Well, that's logical. It's got to be better than the way it was, because I can remember going to auctions here, and I kept back a little bit and got a view so I could see anybody putting his hand up or her hand up, and they were the auctioneer was clearly pulling bids out of the trees.
Well, I used to say when I was giving talks on real estate and auctions, that I remember getting heckled in Adelaide, by the way, but from agents. But I used to say I love that. I'll never forget. That was about 20 years ago. I got heckled from somebody. I actually said, "Do you really think I would have come along and not brought a security guard to throw you out, mate?" But no, the point is, of course, is that real estate auctions are good for the agents. That's why they're good. And it says it in their training courses. The Real Estate Institute of Australia has published a publication. I've got it on my desk here somewhere, and it says these words: auction is the fastest and best conditioning method. And that means conditioning method. Now, look, in fairness to agency, and the sellers can be a little bit guilty in this as well, because most sellers call out 3 agents before they decide on an agent. And if the house is, say, worth $1 million, and an honest agent goes up and says, "Look, I think your house is worth $1 million," then in walks Larry the liar. And Larry pulls up in his black European car, and he tells them, "Oh, I'll put it for auction. You might get $7 million," or whatever he says, you see. So they sign up with Larry, and then Larry starts the conditioning process to talk them down. And that's what they're taught to do. And the thing is, the honest person who told them that your house is worth about $1 million, when that honest person sees it sell at auction for $850 or $900, the honest person says, "Well, I got punished for being honest."
Yeah. Managing expectations, yeah.
And Neil, what's your view on? Well, look, every industry has its adjunct industries. For typically, an agent comes into your property, values it, and then says, "Oh, but you need to make this, that, and the other improvements on this, other."
No, they call
changes.
In the stylist.
Well, that was going to be my question. What's your view on this modern trend of getting stylists in? Because they're not exactly cheap, but they do a good job, I might add. What's your view on that?
My view is simple. Any dollar that you're going to be spending on the sale of your house needs to increase the price of your house. So if you've got a lovely home now and it's nicely set up, you don't need styling. But if your house is cluttered, or if it's a bit old fashioned, or a bit not up with the trends, what people like, I can tell you, right now, Jeremy, that many people do very well out of styling their houses, and they swear that the fact they got an extra $150,000 for spending, say, $5,000 or $10,000 on styling, staging. Staging is cool.
I've toyed with the idea of selling a couple.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Of times, the place that I'm in up the road there is I've been up there for 40 years or something. But you see, the main problem is that I'd never be able to pack everything up. There's too much stuff. But the idea of somebody coming in, and it has happened, somebody coming in and saying, listen, this clutter, how can you live like this? Well, I think it's beautiful. I'm not going to get a stylist.
My wife has solved that problem when our libraries get too full, or we've got too much clutter. She goes and buys another house.
Oh, look, perfect.
Well,
So we've got a couple of houses we don't live in. It's just
yeah,
full of stuff.
Yeah.
one of the saddest things
I think that's beautiful. Yeah.
Jeremy, when I was in at a real estate agency, one of the saddest things I see, and all agents will tell you this, is you go into homes where there's deceased estates or there's been a tragedy, and you notice things like a full tube of toothpaste, and they bought that toothpaste and weren't expecting they were going to pass away. And I often say to myself, with all the clutter around it that we have in our life, what would our relatives throw out? Or what are they going to throw out one day? And that's what you should throw out first and just get it out of your life.
I'm going to get rid of the relatives before I get rid of the stuff.
Well, they say, don't they? They say where there's a will, there's a relative.
Oh, yes. Look, I certainly believe it. One of the most contentious things at the moment in Australia is housing. I was listening to the Senate yesterday, and they were going on about what they were going to build. These guys, we're going to build more houses than you will. We're going to build more houses than you possibly could even think of. I understand that we have a housing problem. Shed some expert light on, for us, what you would do with this housing crisis. Is it because, as Les says, there are too many immigrants coming in and there's just not enough housing? Is it that the price has gone up irrationally to the point where nobody can afford to buy a house? What do you think of the housing landscape at the moment?
And look, Jeremy and Ian, can I just additionally make a comment that when we're spoken to regarding the CPI figures and all the various prophecies and protestations by the government, what they're going to do to cure all this, my view on this is quite simple. It doesn't matter what the interest rates are to support a loan. The main problem in Australia at the moment is the cost of the stock to start with. And if we look back even a couple of years, what it costs in suburban Adelaide to buy a block and a reasonable property compared to what it costs now. So an entry-level property in South Australia, in fact, any capital city of Australia, that is the main problem. It's not the interest rate. The interest rate's only the subject on the basis of how that works, the mathematics, how to support the loan. But if the stock is just out of reach of people in the first place, doesn't matter what the interest rate is, they can't buy it to start with. They won't have enough base money to start and even service the loan.
The thing is, it is though extremely sad that people in their 20s today have such a struggle to get a home. When I was 21, I bought my first apartment. I bought my first home, which was a one-bedroom apartment. And okay, it was a stepping stone. It was all I could afford. But the cost of that apartment was equal to 1 year's salary. So I was earning $28,000 a year, and the apartment cost me $27,500. Now, these days, it's something like it can be 10 or 15 years worth of wages for people to make up the cost of a house. It can take them 5 years to save a deposit. And then when they've saved up the deposit, the house has gone up again by the amount of the deposit.
Can we fix it, and how can we fix it?
Okay, one of the first things I would do, Jeremy and Ian, one of the first things I would do, and I got this on first hand, and I don't want to make headlines around Australia with this.
Do.
I would have a royal commission into local councils, because that place where that library is in Sydney, we've got 5 acres there, and it's on a development site. And we're the only ones that have not sold. But all around us, there's other people selling. And the amount of time that they take holding up the developers, and the developers might, the end buyer, it mightn't be the interest rates, but the developers have huge costs now. And then there's the matter, of course, and nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And I've been asked, my wife said, if you ask us this one more time, if you hint this one more time, I'll tell my husband, so I'm telling you now, is the brown paper bag. And I'm telling you, the brown paper bag really exists. So what we've got to do is we've got to look at this. And you know how many councils in Australia have been sacked by the state governments and everything because they're
corrupt.
Well, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Corrupt.
Yeah.
Some of the councils make real estate agents look like angels. Whoops. No, it's just, it is, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, it's like we bought 5 acres in Sydney 30 years ago, all right? And it's backs onto Castle Hill Golf Course. Now it's got, multiple blocks of land that can be had of it. I say to my wife, I feel like giving one away to nurses and paramedics, the people who save my life every time I get sick,
Mm.
But you think, no, I can't change the whole real estate industry, but the people who are advising the governments on the real estate industry generally are the people who've got a vested interest in real estate.
How overpriced is the market at the moment?
Well, if the buyers are paying the prices, then you can argue it's not overpriced because it's market forces. And our next door neighbour out at the farm, one of his descendants, I'll never forget this, he put this damn wall across a creek. Well, he tried to muck around with nature. He did far more damage trying to block the creek. You can't muck around with nature. And market forces sometimes are a bit natural. You can twinkle with things. And as Ian said about the cost of the stock and bringing it on, it takes almost 5 years now from the time a developer finds some land to actually bring it to fruition where people can start building houses up and selling. And the red tape and the rigmarole and the fees along the way that get put in, and then of course the backhander with the not every council, but only about 90% of them, with the the brown paper bags.
Unfortunately, Neil, I think we're living in an environment in Australia, and perhaps other countries are too, that there's a daisy chain of events, and one event leads to another, and concurrently leads to furthermore. And the real solution to answer Jeremy's questions, in my view, is this country needs to freeze wages and freeze costs. We can't continually keep pushing the barrow upwards when people are just losing their resources, their finance in the background.
Yeah, but how do you do that when they talk about growth? We have to have growth. In fact,
I think you need good, strong leadership. I mean, Hawke had a wages freeze, the Accord. It went on for a number of years, and there was a good outcome to that.
And let me say this, that for most people, and I'm talking probably 85% of Australians that only own one home, what good does it do you if your home goes up in value? Because you've got to sell it and buy another one. You've got the cost of doing it.
True.
Now, the only way it helps is the people who've got two houses. That's it. Or unless you're going to sell and move to Glargenbone or something.
To what extent, though, is I hear the Greens going on endlessly about this, about the negative gearing and capital gains tax discount, and how much would those benefits or those incentives play in forcing up the cost of housing?
Very much so. I often say that Australia's first home buyers have got the footprints of investors on their backs because they get stampeded. Now, I think, I wouldn't know, I'd have to check on this, but certainly the United Kingdom and America, they do not have negative, they don't have tax deductions like negative gearing for investment properties. They've got it on your home loan. It's the wrong way around. But any time you name any politician that tries to do this, they get shouted down, they don't win the election.
Yeah, that's true. You can't take away benefits because it's going to affect you at the ballot box.
But if we look at the other end of the scale, I recently went to Europe, and in Berlin, for example, 90% of people are tenants in the.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
property. So if you think about people working for their livelihood and their future, they essentially, if you become a tenant, you don't have any equity in your future. You end up probably coming out of the womb broke and going to the grave broke. Now, what's the future in that in a free enterprise capitalist system?
I know. Or in Europe, many people have got the same property stays in the family for generations. I have some friends in Heidelberg, and their home has been in the same family for 800 years.
Yeah.
So,
In America, they tell me that interest rates don't worry them too much. They've just had a 0.5% taken off the Fed interest rate judgment or status at the moment. It doesn't worry the buyer of a house too much because apparently most people in America have 30-year loans. Now, why don't we have 30-year loans in Australia?
Oh, no, we do. We have 30-year loans.
Fixed loans, I mean, fixed interest.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you can do that. It's been a long time since I've borrowed money, but I'm pretty sure you could probably do that. You can almost do anything with money these days. The thing is, though, what I do worry about with the prices so high is that this boom we've had in Australia, which has been going on basically in an upward trajectory for almost 30 years, it's the largest boom in our history. And in economics, any professor of economics will tell you that all booms come to an end. Yeah. And they usually end in a bust. And every real estate boom in history, every commodities boom ends in a bust. Now, the trouble is, if you're looking to buy a home for yourself and you want it for your family and you're thinking, well, I'm just going to wait for the bust to come, the bust doesn't come, and then it keeps going up and up and the bust doesn't come in time, you've missed the bust then, haven't you? But what I say to people is honestly, there are some really good places. You've got to get a foothold. The property ladder is literally that. It's a ladder. You've got to get on the bottom rung and you buy a home in a nice...
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Regional centre and become what's called a rentvester. So you rent it out and you use that as your stepping stone back into the market.
Yeah. But Neil, like any investment like the stock market, there's always going to be ups and downs and roundabouts and the boom and bust periods. But the bust never is going to go back to something like it was 20 years ago. And the recovery, like our share market, the ASX has had some pretty horrific bad days, but then within days again, it's gone up and it's presently quite buoyant. But the problem is, how do we, in real estate, when Melbourne and Sydney typically were part of the top 10 most expensive cities to live in on the planet, now Adelaide and Brisbane is almost in that top 10 as well. So we've become a very, very expensive country to live in Neil, which is great for real estate agents because of the commissions they make, because it's always going upwards. And that leads me to the question, shouldn't commissions be fixed?
Oh, 100%, Ian. Absolutely. They should. They used to be regulated, and the industry lobbied the government and said it'll make it cheaper and it'll make it fairer if it's deregulated. So they deregulated, and since deregulation, listen to this. You heard it first on your program, Jeremy. I never said this before either. The real estate's income has gone up 7 times on average in the last 30 years, where the average person's income has only just doubled in the last 30 years. There you go.
Neil, thank you very much for talking with us. I love the books. How do people can just buy the book, or do they ring you, or how do you do it?
If they've been listening to your program today,
yep,
and they call 1-800-1800-18, or just
1-800-1800-18,
and it's 1-800-1800-18, and just tell us that they were listening to your radio program. Then I'm happy to give them, provided they're not agents pretending to be punters, of course.
They wouldn't do that.
So but no, really, I would do. Sometimes I just want to close with this, Jeremy. I've been trying for 25 years doing consumer advocacy and writing books about real estate, and honestly, I sometimes feel like such a failure when I see 2,300 auctions were when properties went for auction in Melbourne last weekend.
Yes.
2,000. And then they release the auction clearance rates, which every week are fraudulent. All of them, they're all fake. They're not true. They didn't sell 63%. You can knock off 20% or more each time they show you the clearance rate. The clearance rates, by the way, or success rate, it doesn't mean successful. It just means it was successful because the agents got their commission. So yes. Ian, you're absolutely right. If there's something, one of the best people you had that worked on the real estate industry was he was your Attorney General at some stage. I don't know if he's still around. A guy called John Rao.
Oh yes, I remember John Rao. Yes.
Yeah, he was a lovely fellow, and he had a good look at the real estate industry, and he really wanted to do things. If you put John Rao in charge of Australia's real estate industry, it'd be a much better place.
Wonderful to talk to you, Neil. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Neil Jenman, ladies and gentlemen, the guru.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.